Welcome to Booked All Night Season 2. Each week, Jess, Katie, and Maggie launch into new worlds, discover amazing characters, and bring you the best bookish discussions under the stars. We're a cozy little corner of the internet, so be sure to leave a comment and join the polls after each episode. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss a chapter. Alright, my little Libranauts, grab a seat, grab a book, and join us as we explore some new pages. Today, we're joined by Henry Corrigan, author of Somewhere Quiet, Full of Light.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. Well, my name's Henry Corrigan. I'm an author, poet, playwright. I'm a bisexual creative. I love to, and writing has been my biggest dream since I was a little kid. So the Somewhere Quiet, Full of Light is actually my first novella being published, but it's my second work. So my first book was A Man in Pieces. It was a psychological thriller that I published. That was originally published a couple of years ago by Darkstroke Books, and then was republished just this year by Bloodhound Books. The Somewhere Quiet, Full of Light, my main book that I'm pushing right now, that is actually pre-orders are live today.
Ooh, exciting.
It's from Slashic Horror Press, and it is a queer haunted house story that came to me a couple of years ago. I was the lie of the American dream is my absolute favorite windmill to tilt at, and I'd been watching a lot of 1970s haunted house films like The Changeling, Burnt Offerings, especially The House by the Cemetery was a big influence. Fulci, I believe, was the director for that one. And a couple of others that I had watched and that I've watched over the years. And I realized that the aesthetic for it could really talk about like avarice and affluence and everything. So the story is about a gay couple, Eric and his husband Mike, and their family. They have two daughters, and Mike is a house flipper who discovers a rare gem in upstate New York that's been sitting abandoned for a number of years and is going for bargain basement prices. He plans to move the family in to be able to build the house up, sell it for an absolute mint when they're done. Eric, one of the main characters in the story, his husband, is very reticent because it's well away from everything, and the house is kind of creepy to begin with. So it's all about what Eric discovers as they move into the house, because the house itself is as much a character as Eric is himself, and it's about. You will get perspective from the house itself. There's whole chapters that are written from the perspective of the house and how it takes to the family, the kids especially, and all of the secrets that are hidden within its walls. So it's a very fun story about the problems of affluence, about trying the lie of the American dream, about trying to move away from screaming landlords, which I've had, trying to, dealing with bills, which I think we've all had, Yeah. So it's very much about the dangers of getting lost in ownership and ending up with things that own you.
I like that.
Yeah.
I especially like that the house is going to be like an active character in the narrative, because I feel like in haunted house stories it has to be.
Yes.
Like I've read a lot lately. Actually, I've been reading a lot of horror. A lot of horror has been coming our way to the podcast.
Good.
And there are some where like the setting doesn't feel involved, and I'm like, but it's horror, like the setting has to be involved.
Yeah.
Like in the same way that like a fantastical setting has to be involved. Like there has to be something here for me to be like see this as more than set dressing. So that makes me really happy to hear that we're going to hear it from the house's point of view, because I love stuff like that.
Yeah. It was something that I really wanted to push for because, like you said, it's set dressing, the ambiance and everything are absolutely key for a haunted house story. Anything gothic or anything like that is absolutely key. But I think that certain objects or certain places take on a life of their own after a while. So, and especially with a haunted house, you kind of have to really dig deep into that. So that's what I really wanted to do, is to like come at this from how the house itself saw itself and the family. So because nobody really sees themselves clearly, we only understand ourselves through how other people see us. So.
Yeah. So Somewhere Quiet, Full of Light is such an evocative title. Can you tell us a little bit about its meaning and how it ties into the story?
Yeah. The title came to me. Sorry.
Oh no.
Oh, sorry about that.
There he is.
Apologize. No, The title actually came to me while I was in the middle of writing it because it was all about Eric, who is an artist and has um, sold at local galleries. I mean, his husband is the breadwinner. He's the house flipper, he gets everything, but he's the established artist. He's had, openings in galleries and like, and art is always been very, very important to him. And it's really where he channels a lot of the anger and the poverty that he grew up in. Like, his mom was, there's a part in the book where Eric talks about the differences between himself and Mike. Both of them grew up with, in very poor homes, but you have like the Mike's parents, who are the type of poor that the Hollywood really doesn't talk about. They're the people that have like 2 or 3 or 4 jobs between them. They're working their asses off. I'm sorry if I can curse on here. I apologize.
Go right ahead. I've decided I'm not bleeping anything out anymore. Go on.
Oh no.
The guy, they work their asses off and never really get anywhere, unfortunately, because of how much it costs to be poor. And because it does, it ends up costing so much over the life. It costs so much to be poor. And Eric, unfortunately, grew up with the kind of parents who Hollywood or certain people in politics love to talk about, which is like, okay, they'll spend like however much money for like a brand new coat that they wear once, and but they'll forget about grocery bills for like half. They'll have their kids eat cereal for like a week for dinner. My father actually, now I did not grow up poor. I did not have that kind of poverty or anything like that. But I remember my father bought a used Mercedes convertible. It was absolutely gorgeous he absolutely could not afford it, because it was anything that broke on this thing, the price for replacement parts was absolutely ridiculous. He loved it and still talks about it to this day. And I remember the fun of having it, but I also remember the amount of money that my dad did not have to be able to keep this thing going. So the Somewhere Quiet, Full of Light is Eric's, channeling some of that is Eric's way of what he's really been looking for in terms of a home for him and his family. Get away from the tiny apartment, the screaming landlords, the bills, and everything like that. So that's his hope for what the house will be. When he moves in, the library is beautiful, but it's like there's a window, and it brings out his easel, and it's like, okay, this might be something that I can actually appreciate. It's somewhere quiet, full of light that I can, grow from. So,
That's lovely.
Where the title came from. Yeah.
Just on a note of like being that kind of poor, like I grew up that kind of poor, especially like the cars and shoes, I think, are the biggest thing that Hollywood especially leaves out, because you can afford a pair of $10 shoes now.
Yeah.
But you're also going to have to afford that pair of $10 shoes a month from now, because they're going to wear down significantly. And with the car, like I have always driven older cars. My first car was a 1987 Mercury Lynx, whose factory date was 1 month older than me. And it broke down all the time. And the amount of money that I sunk into it kept me from getting a car that I wouldn't have to sink a bunch of money into.
Yeah.
And then the same thing happened with the Corsica that I drove after that. Although the Corsica, I will say, was like a tank. I'm convinced I could run that thing into a tank and it would be fine. But yeah, like I think that gets left out of a lot of stories where like, we're poor, so we ate cereal. And I'm like, okay, like I did that once because we were waiting on like my mom's paycheck as a kid, but like there were programs and there were other things, and like the story of like the irresponsible poor is one that I hope that we leave in the past and move forward from in the future.
Yeah, no, I hope so too, because look, you can find someone who can fit any stereotype in the world. You can. You can find one person who can do it. You can't find an entire group of people that can do it. So, and that's especially with the poor, is that we play the blame game. If you're if you're poor, it's your fault. You weren't smarter, you weren't better, you weren't stronger, you didn't try hard enough. The amount of time and effort and energy that it takes to be poor is debilitating. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it was Terry Pratchett who came up with the Vimes boots theory. Yeah, it's from the Discworld system. It's he said, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said something to the effect of a poor man, a rich man might spend however much money on a pair of boots, but those boots will last him 10 years. A poor man might spend a lot less on boots, but it might last him a month. And and he'll spend more money on boots over time than the rich man because he keeps having to replace them. Yeah, it costs to be poor, and so that's what I really wanted to hit on is just the horror of it, and that really bled into the house itself.
So every book carries its own emotional core, and we've touched on this a little bit, but what were some of the most important ideas or feelings that you wanted to explore in the story?
Guilt. I absolutely wanted to look at guilt with this because Eric is the thing that Eric is very hesitant when Eric first sees the house, and Mike is over the moon about it. He's talking about it a mile a minute. It's like, this is going to be the greatest thing possible. We cannot let this go. Okay, we cannot let this go because the house itself has already got its hooks into Mike. It's already started talking to him about what you could do, what I could be worth, what you could do for me. And Eric is very hesitant, and it's what gets him to eventually acquiesce and go with his family, move everybody over, isn't his belief in Mike's dream or the future that he could see within the house. It's the guilt that he feels over squashing Mike's dream. Mike is, and he said, and Eric has said it himself, it's like Mike has a jeweler's eye when it comes to abandoned houses, old houses, and he's made a really good career over turning these abandoned places, these old places, into real profit. It's the reason that they're able to actually do this and maybe even move their family out of, the screaming landlord poverty type of thing. But it's the guilt that he feels, and even the house notices this because the house is has a sense of the people as the longer that they stay there, they have the more house can sense them, the more the house has kind of an influence over them, especially Mike. And the house says to itself that I realized something, that each of my new family has a light within themselves. Mike is a bonfire that I can build up until it's twice as tall as a man, and people will see it for miles. The youngest daughter, Iris, is a road flare. She's so bright, but she's tiny. And then there's Emily, the elder daughter, is like a lighthouse, or she's constantly searching for some form of safety, something. But Eric is like a porch light. He's like the fixed in place. He doesn't, he cares only about his family, bringing everybody home. And the house realizes it's like, I don't actually have to influence Eric to get him to, I don't need to show him what I could do, I don't need to show him what I could be for your family. I just need to let guilt do it for me. And that's what happens, is Eric's guilt over not wanting to crush his husband's dream is what gets them to move the family in. And it's an emotion that all of us feel, because we all feel that we owe something to our family, whether it's our kids or the parents who are no longer here. It's like, I owe this to my dad. My dad would be proud of me if he did this. Or, we all feel that we owe that, and to something, to everybody. And in a way, yes, we do. We do owe a certain level of responsibility, but we don't owe everything to everybody else. We are entitled to things to ourselves, and we're entitled to say, hey, this is a bad idea.
Gonna write that down for therapy next week. I am not entitled to give everything to everyone.
I've been through therapies a number of times, so some of it has sunk in over time. So Some of
Good
it
to
is,
know it works.
Yeah, good to know eventually something sinks in.
yeah.
So, what was the most surprising part of writing this book, whether in terms of character development, plot, or the writing process itself?
I think the most surprising thing and the thing that I had the most fun with was writing the first family, the people who actually built the house themselves, and digging into the. I don't want to give too much away, but digging into the horrors of themselves, and that was honestly the most fun that I had had because the house itself is, and Eric comments on it early in the story because Mike says, okay, how old is this place? He's like, oh, it's like 70 years old. It's like, wait a minute, this whole house is faux Victorian grandeur. It's like the minarets, the gables, all the ironwork, the lattices, everything like that. And Eric's like, wait a minute, if this place is 70 years old, didn't like the Victorian era and way before that did, but the grandeur, the nouveau riche grasping of it is what the house is about. It's all about being grand. It's all about I'm better than literally everybody else. I'm the house on the hill. So and everybody else should look up to me. So I wanted to very much build that into the first family, and I had a lot of fun with the matriarch of the family itself, and because she's the real driving force, but also the youngest daughter of the first family. Writing about her was surprisingly fun and twisted. So, yeah.
That's always fun when our work is like, ha 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 ha. Especially surprising to me because I write mostly like children's fiction, so I'm sitting there like a little maniacal laughter. It's like, I write for children. I gotta delete some of these lines. Okay.
Honestly, I've written a couple of them. I haven't been able to ship them to anybody. I've been able to I mean, they haven't been published, and I've been trying to push them for years. And the children's books is an incredibly difficult genre to bring. It's a very crowded field, and I was very lucky. I was able to find and get in contact with an editor who worked on the Hunger Games. Actually, she was a copy editor on the Hunger Games. And
I've actually worked with her.
Yeah,
Jennifer Reese. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, great woman, great lady, great woman. She was an absolute great editor. She was a lot of fun to work with, and she helped me on the two books that I wanted to develop. One was The Grumble of Tommytown Peak that I still have, and the other was The Girl Who Could Control Day and Night. And she really helped me develop both stories, and I've had a lot of fun with them. But I haven't been. I've pitched both of them numerous times. I haven't been able to find a home for it. Really, I've at least with traditional like agents and like so and. My first book, A Man in Pieces, when I wrote that, it took me a couple of years to write it, and then I spent 7 years pitching it. It was my first novel. It was all over. I tried everything because my readers describe it as psychological thriller. I think of it as horror because it really is about the horror of the American dream and everything that you lose over trying to grasp something that's never going to be even within your reach. Mm-hmm. So at least for a lot of people, I've been very, very lucky, and I will say that to my dying day is that being able to have a home, be able to raise up my daughter. I've worked very hard, but I've been very lucky. I've been very, very lucky, and so I don't want to sit back and say it's like, oh I've only ever did this, but no. But I spent 7 years pitching that novel to be able to get it to traditional publishers, and no one really wanted anything from it. So I ended up looking at a hybrid publisher, which was Darkstroke Books, and that was my first foot in the door. And since then, I've been doing a mix of queries between traditional publishers and independents, and so the independence is how I ended up getting Somewhere Quiet, Full of Light into Slashik's hands, and they really loved it. And I actually have a new book that I've been shopping around for a while. It's a supernatural horror novel called Party of a Lifetime. It's actually a queer supernatural horror novel about four queer friends who try to recreate the prom that could have been, and end up getting dragged down a literal road down to hell. Down to hell. So that is actually being considered by a few independent publishers right now. So I've been, I was over the moon when I got the notices from 3 different independent publishers saying, we would like to, we would like the full manuscripts. We'd like to consider this.
That's
So
exciting.
it is,
Amazing.
yes. Again, nothing's guaranteed, as everything in life. Everything's up in the air, but it's just exciting to be able to have that. So,
Yeah.
so my hope is, in a very roundabout way. I know I'm kind of running the road here, but for the children's books that I have, and I really love them because they're based a lot on my daughter growing up, and I have a list of independent children's publishers that I'm hoping to eventually query. It's just one more thing on my to-do list that I will eventually get to. So hopefully I'll find a home for all my stories, all my book babies.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, a lot of children's publishing, including all the way up to young adult, a lot of it is pushing toward independent publishers at this point, and especially a lot of self-publishers, because the field is oversaturated. But like I go to a lot of writing conventions and like single day workshops and stuff to pitch the agents, and one thing that has stuck with me was one agent was like, I get roughly 3,000 queries in my inbox every single day. And I'm like, oh, I'm never querying you. But she's like, I'm not the only one, right? Like, she's one of the more popular ones. Eric Smith has also said he gets a couple, like, 1,000 in his inbox every day. And when you consider they have the help of interns and assistants, but somebody's got to go through all of those. Like, yeah, your stuff gets missed, or your stuff is just, like, not hitting the same notes as something else, or your stuff got looked at right before lunch instead of after lunch, and like there's all these little incidental things that help you luck out or not, and it's just like, that's all it is at the end of the day is luck. I mean, like your writing skills, but also a lot of luck.
It is. Yes. I actually got into a conversation with a former publisher. It's because the publishing industry is such a vagary, and I think every writer will have at some point when they start querying, we'll see the same 5 words in every rejection letter that they get. It's like, this business is highly subjective. Every publisher will say a variation of those 5 words. And it's not just for authors, because again, agents get hundreds, thousands of queries every day, every week, every month, and reviewers, same thing. They get, when I started self-publishing some of my works, before I moved on to like hybrid publishers and independents, I was working with looking around for reviewers, and they were, and the same thing, they would get hundreds of queries and everything like that. But to go back to your point about how a lot of especially for children's books, are moving more towards like independence and self-publishing, one of the things that they had said is that it used to be, or at least the common false knowledge when it comes to publication is that once you get like into a major publisher or whatever, they'll handle everything. They'll take care of like the marketing, the marketing, the promotion. They'll take care of you will have to obviously show up for the interviews, but they'll take care of most of it. They'll build up the marketing campaign and the like. That's not true, and hasn't been for some time. Is a lot of publishers will actually, what they'll do is they might have, let's say they put out 20 books, in a month, but they'll only build a marketing campaign around 1 or 2 of those books, the ones that they really, really believe in.
Yep.
And the rest falls on the shoulders of the author. So when I realized that, when I found that out, I'm like, so I still try to get into agents. Obviously everybody wants to be part of the big five, but it's like, why am I not looking at the independents when odds are good that even if I get through the gates of an agent, then get through the gates of a major publisher, all of this might end up falling back on my shoulders anyway.
Yeah.
So why not just try with the independents? Because at least they might have a better chance of, or at least I would have a better chance of getting my foot in the door. So yeah, that's. I think, I cap, whenever I'm querying on anything, I try to cap the number of queries that I do, because it's, getting rejections is difficult, no matter how, no matter, what genre or anything that you're in. So I try to keep it like under 100. If at 100, if I don't get anything, if I don't see anything or anything from anybody, it's like, okay, then I'll put this aside, and I might consider self-publishing it later or doing something with it, or maybe another opportunity will come up. And I've been lucky so far because, like I said, I spent 7 years pitching A Man in Pieces. I sent 75 queries for Somewhere Quiet, Full of Light before it was finally picked up by Slashik. And my new book, Party of a Lifetime, is 51. Yeah, 51. I've sent out 51 queries, and I have like 3 that are currently considering it. So the progression is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do something similar. I'm like, all right, at 100, if there have been like absolutely no bites, I'm either A, going to take it back and re-edit this book, or just shelve it, like, depending on the reaction that I get from it. Like, if I get a lot of form rejections, it's just going to get shelved, right? Like, I think form rejections speak volumes about how people feel about your work because they didn't come up with anything specific.
Yeah.
The one that I am querying right now, a lot of people are like, I really love the voice, but there's a lot of inconsistencies. So I'm like, okay, back to editing with it, because that's something that I am getting frequently, like that very specific, and that's not a form rejection. So yeah. I also only send out like 10 queries at a time, because when I first started querying work, I was like, yeah, I'm going to put like 50 to 100 out there because it's like accuracy by volume of fire. And then I got like 20 rejections in my inbox one day. and that was a lot.
Yeah.
And like, that's a lot to deal with as a normal person. It's especially a lot to deal with as a depressed and anxious person. So I was like, okay, lesson learned, 10 at a time.
Same. Yeah. For depression and anxiety, same. It's like they say, you gotta set boundaries or restrictions, whether it's and it's to protect yourself. People in rejection, with especially in art and any form of art that we're doing, and this is art, and writing is art, is it's very subjective, and criticism is just part of it. You're going to get rejected, but eventually you just have to kind of protect yourself. Make sure that you're in a good headspace to keep moving forward. Like when I was for Somewhere Quiet, Full of Light, I was lucky enough to. Let me see. I'm a member of the HWA, or actually, I was. I need to. I need to pay my dues.
Reminder.
Yes, I need to do that. But I was lucky enough to get accepted into the the HWA's mentorship program, and I ended up working with David Niall Wilson, who he's published, I forget, however many books, and he owns like Crossroad Press, and he's an independent publisher himself. And I got a chance to be able to work with him on really fine-tuning the book itself. And it was an odd process because he was in the middle of like 10 different projects at the time. But he was able to give me, between him and my beta readers, they were able to give me really good feedback on how to, one of the things that they had come back was saying that the writing for the house was kind of clunky. It was, and I went back and I realized that the reason for that was because the house, my idea originally was that the house was supposed to be like faux Victorian grandeur. So the house kind of talked in like faux Victorian, and kind of like, that like grandiose, like, I went to like 3 different I went to like, Ivy League colleges or whatever. And, and I pronounce all my consonants.
Yes.
But, yeah. And it was really holding things up and really making the story not come along very well. So going back and making it more of a living, breathing character as people actually speak, it really helped streamline the story and it made it more impactful for me. So that really, really helped. So yeah, feedback is, and getting personal queries is absolutely essential, is going back and making sure it's like, okay, how does this actually read? And going back and seeing what I can fix. Like first short story I ever had accepted was actually an erotica, and it was for a let me see, an anthology that was being published around. And I sent in the story, and the editor came back and with a personalized, response, and he said that it was amateurishly overwritten, and he had marked the whole page and like the first 2 or 3 pages of it in red, and sent everything back. And he said, "Look, it's amateurishly overwritten. Here's a little guide. I've given you a little guidebook, basically. If you can follow this and go through the rest of the story, fix it, I will consider accepting it." I hated that man inside of a paragraph. All right. He was arrogant. He was abrasive. I hated him even more when I went back and realized he was right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went back, I looked at the story, and I'm like, damn it. And then I edited it. I went back, I did it, and I pared it down as much as I possibly could. I sent it back to him. He accepted it. And the sad part is that it was an independent publisher, and as unfortunately it happens a lot with independents, it went belly up before the anthology even saw the light of day. But the lesson that I learned about writing and paring everything down, because when I'm draft writing, I do overwrite. I don't trust the reader when I'm drafting, but it's a lesson that I've taken going forward, and I still carry that to this day. So
I'd rather overwrite any day, because when I go back to edit and I find that I have underwritten a section, and I sit there like, what could possibly be said here?
One of the funnest things that I've found about writing is that, and it's when I was in high school and we would have like creative writing. I loved creative writing, but the teacher would always look at me and be like, because the other students would immediately just start writing. I had to think about it for a minute because I wanted to like get this right. I wanted to really like, craft something great because I cared about writing so much. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized that even getting it wrong is helpful, because just getting it down on the page, when you go back, when you've overwritten like I do, it helps me to see the little pieces that actually do work in here. I can pare it down and I can carve out like a little path for myself. So even getting it wrong, even writing the wrong word is helpful because it points you in the direction of where the story should actually go.
Yeah. On that note,
yes,
we have long been past due coming to the very first game of the podcast.
All right, I'm over talking. I apologize.
No, it's fine. It's equal parts everybody's fault because we were all like writing. Oh my god, let's talk about writing.
We're all yappers here, so
we're all yappers. It's great. The first game of the podcast is Never Have I Ever Spoiled My Own Book, which is a lovely little game for us here at Booked All Night. I will give you 10 readerly and writerly stereotypical things to do. Things like written at a coffee shop or used a receipt as a bookmark will appear on most of the lists that I do throughout this game. Yeah. And you're going to tell us if you've done it. And if you have done 5 or more, you have to spoil something from Somewhere Quiet Full of Light. Okay. And just as a warning, I am not above putting things on here like never have I ever written a book called Somewhere Quiet Full of Light. I am quite petty about this particular list.
That's fine.
Okay.
All
right. Number 1. Never have I ever read a book in one sitting.
I have done that. Well, at least when I was a kid. So
yeah.
I was a huge Goosebumps fan. 25 copies of the books, at least the first 25 books. So yeah, I used to, on like Saturday mornings, I would just sit in the corner of a couch with a blanket and a pillow, and I would just burn through the book, and even though I knew I'd have to wait like another month before I'd be able to get like the next copy. So
yes. I loved Goosebumps as a kid. Goosebumps are not as great as an adult, but they were amazing as a child.
That's hold up. I mean, I look back at some of the books that I read when I was a kid. Like, I read Bruce Coville, who was another, horror science fiction, kids writer and everything. And Spirits and Spells is one from still one of my favorites. I reread it just the other day, and it was, like I said, you see, as an older writer, you see like the little pieces that you could make better, but it's still a fun book. It still like brings back the nostalgia for me and it's still fun to be able to sit and read.
Yeah. I really miss the Choose Your Own Adventure books. And trying to get through and being alive, which I don't think I ever did for any of them. The next one is never have I ever skipped to the ending of a book to see what happens.
No, I don't think I've ever done that. No.
Never have I ever written a character inspired by someone I know.
Oh, I've totally done that.
Never. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, both good and bad. Yeah. Yeah.
Never have I ever used a book as inspiration for my own writing.
Oh, I have done that, yes. And I still do that, honestly. Old stories, whether from... let me see. Well, like I said, I watched a lot of 1970s horror films, haunted house films, and that really helped influence Somewhere Quiet, Full of Light. So, there's other books as well that I've used to be able to help me craft things. So yes, absolutely.
Never have I ever judged a book by its cover.
Yes, you always.
Mm-hmm.
That's the God's honest truth. I've even had agents at mid-tier publishers admit that and say, will absolutely judge a book by its cover. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that works both ways. I've absolutely picked up a book because the cover is gorgeous and then the writing was
terrible.
Not. Yeah. I could think of one in particular, but I made a promise to not trash books on this podcast, but there is one in particular that I will text Maggie about later.
Hear about it. So.
Never have I ever started a new book before finishing the one I'm reading.
Oh, I've done that. Yeah. Yeah. Eventually, I mean, I wanted to read The Shadow of the Wind, which was Carlos Ruiz Zafón, if I remember correctly. I've heard so many great things about that book for so many years, and I took it from the library. I started reading it. I got about 200 pages in, and it is a beautiful book, but it's incredibly dense. And I couldn't finish it before I couldn't. I had to return it to the library. So, and I started picking up other graphic novels that I had been really looking forward to trying, and started reading those as opposed to this. So I plan to go back and see how the rest of it goes, but for right now, I've done that, absolutely.
Me too.
I think I'm in the middle of 6 books right now.
That doesn't count. You gotta read like 10 chapters.
I've been in the middle of Mistborn for like 8 months. I keep meaning to finish it. It's great. I love it so far. My partner has finished the entire series, basically. And he keeps yelling at me to finish it so that he can talk to someone about it, because no one else in our close friend group has read Brandon Sanderson. And I'm like, I'm trying. I just have these other ones I need to read too.
Yeah. No, I love the Mistborn series. It was a beautiful. I loved it. I'm not usually a fan of epic fantasy. Like I've read like Brent Weeks. I love the Brandon Sanderson. I've read a couple of things. And some of them can be really, really great. With epic fantasy, sometimes I think this is this comes back to my thing of like overwriting and paring things down. Like the Somewhere Quiet, Full of Light is a novella. My A Man in Pieces is 52,000 words. So the idea is that for some epic fantasy that I've tried to read, it's like you could cut 100 pages of details out of this book, and not only would it not hurt the story, it would make it read better. That's just my opinion. You know, I do love some epic fantasy, so don't hate me if you fantasy.
No, there's definitely, like, I love fantasy, especially I love high fantasy, but there is definitely some people that are still very Tolkien-esque in that they like spend 3 to 5 chapters telling us about the leaves and how green they are, and like, okay, I get it, and I would like to move on now.
Even Gale will do it.
Yeah.
Even in horror, he'll do it. He'll talk like, you know, he'll spend like however many pages talking about like what was it, a pig or a warthog that was, or no, a groundhog, that was it, in Under the Dome. He spent like 4 or 5 pages talking about a groundhog as it was moving, just before it got cut in half by the dome when it finally came down. So it's like, dude, no. So,
yeah. Never have I ever cried over a fictional death.
Oh, I absolutely have. Simon R. Green's, oh goodness, it's on my bookshelf. Simon R. Green's, hang on, it's on my bookshelf. Simon R. Green's Shadows Fall. I've reread this book a number of times, and within the first 20 or 30 pages, it makes me cry, you know, and it's every single time, and I've read it easily and I've read it easily like 3 times. So it's, yeah.
My last 2 big ones, because in high school I cried all the time, but as an adult reader, I like very proudly carry a Heartless Monster card. You know, I just like, it doesn't really affect me too much. But the last 2 big ones that definitely got like an emotional reaction out of me was The Hate You Give, when her friend gets shot, and they both die at the end.
Oh.
Because the entire time I was reading, I listened to that, so I was actually crying on my way home because I was finishing it. I'm like, they can't both die, how dare you! It's like literally the title, but okay, Jessica.
Yeah, that one was rough.
That was rough, yeah. That hit real hard, because I'm like, no, obviously it's a love story. You wouldn't actually kill them both off. How dare you? No. Rude. Never have I ever rewritten the ending of a book in my head.
I have, yes. Yes. Actually, with with my current book that I'm shopping around, Party of a Lifetime, I ended up doing that because my original idea, and I drafted it this way, you know, when I wrote the first draft, my original idea had been very much of a Mean Girls type of thing, you know, and about how it's like it all comes down to this one hellion from high school being behind everything. And the more that I went back and started revising, the less it worked. It felt like I was trying to shoehorn all of this in, and it didn't really help me at all. Mm-hmm. So I ended up, and the more that I went back, the more I realized that this other character was speaking to me over and over and over again, and just becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. And I realized it's like, okay, that works. And I rewrote the ending based on it. So, and it worked so much better. And I'm having so much, and it's actually, the Party of a Lifetime is the first in the trilogy. So seeing where the big bad goes and keeps going for and everything, I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right, the last 2. Never have I ever joined a book club.
I have, yes. I'm actually a member of several book clubs. I'm a member of the the Psychological Thrillers book club, which is on Facebook Message. Let me see. I believe I'm a member of the This Queer Book Saved My Life book club, if I remember correctly, and a couple of other. And like I said, my first short story, so the first real professional writing that I did was in erotica, and I was part of an erotica writing group at the time, and they, more than anything, they helped shape my writing as well. So it's, the book clubs have been and writing groups have been a big thing for me for a long time.
I've only recently found a couple in-person ones near me,
Mm-hmm.
and I love them. They're all very nice, but they are talkers, and so writing doesn't get done. And I'm like, you guys suck. No, they're very nice. And the last one is, never have I ever written a book review.
Oh, I have written a book review, yes, or at least for like Amazon, left reviews for online, yes, for friends of mine whose books that I really admire, and let me see, and I actually mean to write reviews for a couple of books of a friend of mine, Mia Dahlia. She's another horror author or author herself, and queer author as well. And I got the flu recently, and I couldn't really do much of anything, so I just read for a long time. So I read a lot of her work and other friends of mine work, and I mean to like leave like good reviews for everything that I found. So because it's beautiful.
Yeah. Man, I feel that when you get sick. I can't even read when I get sick. I get so, like, hit, and then you're high out of your mind on cough syrup, and you're like, what did I just read? Am I reading? Like, what time is it? Like, it's bad. So you did 9.
Yeah.
9 out of 10. So you have to spoil something from Somewhere Quiet Full of Light.
Okay. I'll spoil a bit of the first family. And one of my favorite characters to write was, I think I previously, was the youngest daughter, whose name is Millicent. And the matriarch of the family who helped build the house, and who they not only built the house, they bid it feed. They brought it to life and they bid it feed. And Millicent was very much a part of that. And there's a part in the story that they talk about where the new family, Eric and his kids, they meet Emily, the oldest daughter, makes a friend, and who's a local in town, and he tells them the story about his grandfather and this really expensive high-end cabinet that he owned a furniture store, and he got a really expensive high-end cabinet. He's like, most people in town, they're not going to want this, but the old lady, she will. So he put it aside to go and talk to, because it was late at night when the shipment came in. He's like, I'll put it aside. I'll call the old lady tomorrow and talk to her, talk to the matriarch about if she wants it. Later that night, they got woken up by this enormous crash and had no idea what happened. They came downstairs, and the display window for their shop completely busted, and the cabinet was missing. Turns out Millicent, the youngest daughter, was actually in town running errands, and she saw the cabinet, knew that it belonged at the house, and rather than wait for anything, crashed through the display window and was found by the cops later dragging the cabinet up trying to drag the cabinet up the hill to the house. She's covered in blood, and she's trying to drag the cabinet along with her. And the friend who is relaying this story and says, and the family is obviously like, what the hell is wrong with these people? It's like, what? I mean, did the old lady, the matriarch, did she eventually and she called to talk? Obviously, you want to pay, figuring she wants to pay for damages or something like that. No,
I love that.
Yeah,
and that brings us back to the next section of questions.
Sounds good.
Horror can take so many forms, from the psychological to the monstrous. What kind of horror do you find yourself most drawn to as a writer?
Oh, that's tough. That's a great question. I think horror starts with psychology. It's because you have to get into the minds of your characters, not just the good guys, but the bad guys as well. You can obviously create monsters that are two-dimensional. They're just there to be able to menace people and everything, and deal with the psychology of that. But yeah, I think it kind of starts with psychology, and then the monstrous and how monstrous we become. That's part of what happens in my new book, in Somewhere Quiet Full of Light. That's part of what happens with one of the main characters, Mike, or one of the characters anyway. He's how monstrous he eventually becomes, and psychological in the dealings of Eric, who loves him deeply, but still has to decide whether or not he can be saved, or do I need to save my family and leave him behind?
Fear is such a personal thing, and what scares one person might not affect another. How do you approach crafting fear in your stories?
People say that there is always, that there are universal things that we all deal with, really. And, you can write these things in broad strokes. I find, at least for my personal writing, I write about the things that I know scare me. And it's by writing about the things that scare me that I come to understand that I'm not the only one who deals with this. Like when I wrote A Man in Pieces, like I said, my readers describe it as psychological thriller. It's always been horror for me because you can say it's like, oh, well, everybody everybody worries about bills. Everybody worries about home ownership and everything like that. Well, Man in Pieces, like a psychological thriller, most psychological thrillers are about like, let me see, stalkers, serial killers. They're about like soldiers, spies, cops. These are two very average men who are trying their best to work at an absolute dead-end job, and they find out that it's downsizing. And one is a father to be, his wife is on bed rest, and the other is his abusive boss, who his life and his health are falling apart. They've got to battle each other for the last spot at a dead-end job because they can't live without it. And the fight will lead one of them to murder. So it's... I've been in dead end jobs. I've woken up in cold sweats over the bills, over the mortgage, over this, over that, and I realized that by writing about my own fears, it helped me to understand that I wasn't the only one who was dealing with them, and I think that's what makes the work and my work more relatable. Is just understanding that. Yeah, fear is a very personal reaction. What will scare someone, and like you said, what will scare one person won't scare another. But when you dig into what really terrifies somebody, you'll find commonality.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Were there any particular challenges in balancing horror with the other elements of Somewhere Quiet, Full of Light?
No, actually, no, I don't think so. When I, it's funny, my first book, when I first wrote the draft, it was difficult because I brought what I had to beta readers, and it was actually in the erotica writing group that I was part of, and they came back and they said, "Look, it's beautiful, but it's oppressive. There's no light here. There's nothing to laugh over, or there's nothing heartwarming here." And and it's all just like one bad thing after another after another. It's like getting hit over the head, really, repeatedly. And so I learned from that, and I went back and it might sound counterintuitive, but I went back and I added light into the story. I added love. I added warmth. I added all of the laughter and the jokes and things like that. And because like I said, it might be counterintuitive, but when you bring the light, it makes the darkness hit that much harder.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's so with Somewhere Quiet, Full of Light, that was a lesson that I really hung on to. So I brought the warmth and the light and the jokes and the love, and I broke it. And
absolutely, yeah, that is quintessential. I think writing anything,
yeah,
you need to have that light to then make it the darkest thing possible.
Yeah, roller coaster. You need the highs to be able to fully appreciate the lows, or the lows help you appreciate the highs. It's like, it might be painful at the very end, but you still remember it and you still think about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I had a teacher once say that plot was chasing your characters up a tree, but characterization was throwing rocks at them. and like that's what I think of, like, because like everybody knows Freytag's Triangle, right? And a little plot mountain that you did in like second grade, and here's your beginning and your climax and your ending.
Mm-hmm.
But a better way of storytelling is that, like, it's not a straight line going up where it's just all darkness or all light. It's like there are big moments and sad moments and big moments and sad moments, and like it's true. Like, you have to have those polar opposites in order for either of them to matter.
Yes,
like,
absolutely. Yeah, they're essential.
Yeah,
and it makes the story that much better and more memorable to you, because obviously if it's just one note, then why would you even bother finishing it? If it's all happiness and sweetness and light, and this is not, I mean, I know children's books are, they're not supposed to get very dark or anything like that, and I understand that, but there's still that ebb and flow that's there. It's like, am I, is this new person that I'm meeting like a potential friend, or is this somebody I need to really worry about? So, it's not on the same scale, but it's relatable. It's the idea is still very much the same.
Yeah. And that brings us to the second game.
Right.
Would you rather? Very straightforward. I ask you, would you rather A or B? You tell me A or B.
Okay.
So the first one is, would you rather live on a spaceship that's slowly losing power, or be stranded on a desolate alien planet with no way off?
Spaceship that's slowly losing power. Yeah. At least with the spaceship, it's contained. There's it's a potentially fixable problem. There's options that you have. If you've got no way off and it's an entire planet, you have, not only do you have no way of getting home, you have no idea what's around the next corner. So that's way more variables. Yeah.
Would you rather have a book that predicts your every move, or one that changes its plot based on your decisions?
Oh, changes its plot based on my decision. Yes, because I've toyed with the idea of like an infinite book, one that and some writers have done it. Like they've written books where they send it to you and it's written in chapters, and there's no and you can by rearranging the chapters, you change what happens in the book. So it's kind of like choose your own adventure, as you were saying, but it's infinitely configurable, almost infinitely configurable. So I would rather have that. Yeah, the one that can predict your every move. That's just downright settling.
I actually watched an anime many years ago, as I'm no longer in my anime era, but one of the plot devices of that was somebody had a book that told them the movement of another character, and like where they were down to the minute of every day, and I'm like, that's creepy. No, thank you.
Yeah. What's Harry Potter, the Marauders map, right?
Yeah.
It tells exactly where everybody is when in the entire castle. That's useful, but it's I don't really want to that's also spying. So
yeah. It's also like as a kid I was like, yeah, now you can sneak around, and as an adult I'm like, ooh, it's like stalking and really weird.
Yes.
Okay, would you rather have the ability to read minds but only hear the most terrifying thoughts of those around you, or be able to speak to anyone in the universe but always say the wrong thing?
Oh God, that's tough. Either way, you're screwed. Yeah. The depression and anxiety in my head is going more towards the darker side of things, of the what was it, reading minds but only seeing like the worst things of parts of it. I don't think I would last very long if I had but I'd probably never sleep, but it's the other one would just be infinitely frustrating. Either one would be debilitating, the other would be infinitely frustrating. So I'll go with reading minds. It would probably kill me, but it would.
Would you rather spend a week in a haunted house with a group of friends, or be trapped in a library full of cursed books?
Oh, damn. Haunted house, yeah, because the haunted house, because I love Guillermo del Toro's work, Crimson Peak, the idea that ghosts and spirits are not always malevolent. They might be, trapped ghosts, flies trapped in amber, or they might be something else, or a loved one. You can learn a lot from that. And at least like then, I'm trapped in with friends of mine, and again, with Somewhere Quiet Full of Light, I gotta go there. I mean, the library, I love libraries, but yeah, I will go with the haunted house.
I don't know. I think I'd probably go with the library because Maggie is one of the friends that I would be trapped in a haunted house with, and she spooks very easily.
Yes.
And
yes.
I am like trying to
a ball of panic.
yeah. Like it would be sitting there trying to have breakfast, some scary ghost next to me, Maggie just screaming. Like I feel like the library might be more peaceful.
The library would be too tempting for me because here's the thing: everybody likes to believe that they're special. Everybody likes to believe that we're the ones that, we could do this and get away with it. And I'm no better than anybody else. So I would totally be the one to be like, grab like the curse book. It's like, it won't be that bad.
It's fine.
What's a little blood dripping down the walls,
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I've lived in a dorm before. Mold's been there. It's cool. Like,
yeah.
Would you rather have your favorite fictional universe come to life, but with all of its dangers, or be stuck in space with a terrifying alien species as your only companions?
Ooh, okay. That's a tough one. Pardon me, my stomach's rumbling. Let's say, I will go with the terrifying alien species because, again, it comes back to the whole thing of everybody likes to believe that they're special, and we all have like a mythical universe that we would love to be a part of, but we want to be like the hero and know exactly where all of the the trials and traps and tribulations are. That won't work if it actually comes to life. So, no. Terrifying, yeah. I mean, I think it was John Scalzi's Old Man's War. I think it was. He wrote about how meeting alien species, and when it comes down, they might be terrifying looking, but it might be that they're very gentle or docile. Like I think it was in his book, he was talking about there was this one species that they had found that it was like a crab monster. These things were like the pincers and the carapace and everything like that, and they were pacifists. And they were a highly cultured species, and they were non-violent species. That meanwhile, the other species that they had encountered was deer-like in appearance. It was like an upright deer with like the antlers and the fur and the gentleness. It looks beautiful. They were monsters. They would eat your own young in front of you.
Why are we laughing about that? Would you rather face off against an army of zombies with nothing but a typewriter, or have to solve an ancient otherworldly riddle to escape a black hole?
Oh, give me the riddle. Yeah.
Okay.
I love a good typewriter. It's actually I learned to type on a word processor, like straight out of the 80s word processor. So I love a good typewriter, but yeah, the not exactly helpful. So that scenario, yeah.
I actually learned to type on a typewriter because that's what we had in the house. And it is heavy, and I think I could do some damage with the typewriter, to be honest.
They are heavy. No, that's true. Yeah, you could probably do it. But like against a whole army, I would have a problem. It's like you just like after like 3-4 swings of this, it's like, oh god, I'm dead.
Yeah.
I can't lift my arms. Just take them by now.
Yeah. Would you rather be the only survivor of a deadly space mission, forced to live out your days in isolation, or be part of a team that discovers an ancient alien artifact that drives everyone insane?
Jessica, were you in a mood when you came up with these?
This is what I get for doing these before I take my meds, but it's fine.
Here's the thing. Either way, you're going to end up insane. Because that's the thing. It is with isolation, no one can be alone for very long. Okay, no one, I mean, I'm very much a loner. And I'm very much an introvert. I love my family and everything like that. I love some of my favorite times is playing with my daughter, being with my wife, having a good time and everything. But yeah, we all need alone time, and I'm very much that. But no one can be alone forever, and without going crazy. And so at least with my friends, I would have friends, and at least then, like, we might be crazy, we might be like eating each other, but at least it would be.
But we'd be together.
Yeah, be together. I'll go.
Be together in our insanity and cannibalism.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fine.
Life is all about, really. It's all of us just being together in our own insanity. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So not much change. Okay, cool.
Oh, yeah.
Would you rather explore a never-before-seen galaxy filled with unknown creatures, or enter a parallel dimension where every horror novel you've ever read is real?
Oh, Lord. What was the first one?
Explore a never-before-seen galaxy filled with unknown creatures.
Unknown creatures. I'll go with the unknown. No. That's a tough because, I mean, the horror stories are real, which means that I could predict how they were going. But again, no, that comes down that no. I'll go with the unknown because it's the whole thing of like I want to believe that I'm special and that I would be able to solve the problems and know where all the plot points are, and I'd be like the lone survivor with like the flag in one hand and the gun in the other. I'll go with the unknown. So.
All right, we're down to the last two. Would you rather write a book that only you can read, or a book that is so terrifying it causes anyone who reads it to fall into a deep sleep for days?
Oh, falls into a deep sleep for days. Yes, because I mean I love writing stories, and we always say write for yourself. But if I'm really, when you do something that you're really proud of, you want to crow. You want to share it with people. So even if it is something that will traumatize them for a few days, it's like, I would like to keep it away from certain people, certain members of the family, and I will absolutely load in the trigger warnings. It's like, don't read this if you're planning to work the next day, but. But yeah, it's absolutely. I would rather share. So I'll share the love. Yeah,
the love. Yeah. And the final one is: would you rather face an army of terrifying space creatures, or be the one human on a ship full of sentient, unfathomable beings?
Ooh. Sentient, unfathomable being. I mean, as versus terrifying, an army of terrifying creatures. I might be, anytime I'm facing an army, I'm going to end up getting dead. So it's the unfathomable creatures. Again, I will take that just because there's a chance that I might at least be able to survive. I could build something for myself and just deal with the craziness, because a lot of people are unfathomable. So yeah,
it's true.
So I would rather take the chance.
And that brings us back to our final round of questions.
You got it.
All right, this is, I think, our favorite section that we've added to the podcast. A gathering of some unhinged questions. If you were trapped in your own haunted house, would you make it out alive? Be brutally honest.
No.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Just no.
No.
And probably what is my favorite question in this little grouping. Let's say your book gets adapted into a Muppets movie. Who's playing what role, and most importantly, who is the only human character?
Oh, goodness. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay, Eric, the main character, would be the only human character. And I would go with, oh goodness, what is his name? From he played the Beast in Beauty and the Beast, and what in the CGI, and something Smith, I think Dan Smith, I think is his name.
Oh, I'll have to look that up. Hold on.
I don't recall.
I can't look it up right now. I think that was his name, but yeah, he was in Abigail, and he was in he played Beast in Beauty and the Beast, and he's been in a couple of other things. But I would pick him as my one human character because I think he would really embody the
Was Dan Stevens.
Dan Stevens. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, Dan Stevens. He would embody the emotion of Eric. You know, the range of it, from the guilt to the love to the determination, the artist and everything. I think he would really embody that. Everybody else, the matriarch would be Miss Piggy, and let's see, Millicent would be. Let's see, Millicent
would be Gonzo.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I was thinking either Gonzo or Animal in a wig. Yeah. Let's see. The uncle, you know, the uncle who is another part of the family. I think that would be Sam the Eagle, because I could see him with like the monocle and everything like that, and the top hat. And Mike, that's a tough one. Fozzie. Yeah, he would. Yeah, Fozzie, because because Fozzie is half crazy to begin with, so yes. I could see that going. So I could totally see him like going the rest of the way. So yeah,
the house is obviously Statler and Waldorf.
Yes. Yes. That would be awesome. That would be totally awesome.
Amazing.
Yes.
All right. You get to summon one famous horror villain to be your co-writer on your next book. Who are you choosing, and what kind of chaos do they bring to the writing process?
I'm sorry, I lost you for a second. I get to sub in one famous horror villain, and they get
you get to summon one famous horror villain to be your co-writer on your next book. Who are you choosing, and what kind of chaos do they bring to the writing process?
Okay. One famous horror villain that I. Freddy Krueger, yeah, because I love a villain with personality, and I loved Friday the 13th. Well, I loved Jason and Michael, and I haven't seen Terrifier yet, but I love a villain with real personality. Either him or Hannibal Lecter, from the show itself. Another actor whose name I cannot think of off the top of my head.
I can't think of who that is either.
Yeah, but he is
Mads Mikkelsen, right?
Yeah, Mads Mikkelsen. Yes, that's right. Yes. Thank you very much. Yes, either Hannibal or Freddy Krueger, and the chaos that they would bring. Freddy would bring like the campy anarchy. The chaos. He would really bring chaos itself, because everything about him is whimsical death, really. Hannibal would bring a much more measured and a much more sadistic form of darkness. Like he would, like Hannibal has rules. They only make sense to him, but he's got rules. So he would bring a calculating, delicious form of darkness.
So I would say Michael, because he's quiet.
Yeah.
So I would get my work done.
He would just point and with a little, instead of like a machete or a kitchen knife, you just see a little red pen.
See, I would pick the ghost from Paranormal Activity, just so that they could bring some stuff closer to me when I need it, and it's across the room. Alrighty, and then our last unhinged question for the night. If you had to write a horror story using only kitchen utensils as the plot's key elements, what would it look like?
Oh, that's fun, because the kitchen is everybody says the kitchen is the heart of the house, but the kitchen is also the place where the most arguments happen, where also tends to be like the most violence happens, because everybody congregates there. You know, like you have your bedrooms, you can lock the doors, you can like turn everything, you know, you can like block the doors and everything like that. In the kitchen, it's open ended, and everywhere you look, there's something that you can use. So whether it's to defend yourself or to take down somebody else. So yeah, the kitchen is what would it look like? I would say it would be a. Hmm, one of my favorite stories, and one of the things that I want to do a spin on, was from the original Creep Show, and it's the story of Father's Day, where the Aunt Bedelia is she murdered her father. Was abusive. Her father was an absolute monster, and he actually murdered the man that she loved. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling Creep Show for anybody out there. I should have said that to begin with, but she murdered him for all of the horrors that he did, and he comes back for revenge, and on Father's Day 7 years later. So I have ideas for doing a spin on this idea, because the story is about how, okay, you did wrong and now you got to pay for it, but it skips over the nuance of this. The man was abusive. The man committed murder. The man got away with committing murder and turning her, and no one was helping this poor woman to be able to get out of this horrible situation that she was in. So, do you really have the right to judge somebody for doing what they, for taking whatever action they can to be able to get out of hell? So, I would say if the story would look like the patriarch, the grandfather, the father, whoever he was, he's back, and the rest of the family is now divided into whose side are they really on. Are you going to pretend that you're one of the good ones, that grandpa is going to look after you, if you help him out and not eat your fucking face off, or are you with the very difficult but unrelatable aunt who did a terrible thing to be able to get out of hell? And I can see both sides of it, standing on either side of the kitchen table or a butcher block. Everybody's got weapons, and no one has any idea who's going to make it out alive, so yeah, I might end up developing that into a real story.
Happy to help.
Yes.
Yes.
And finally, it takes an entire community to get books out into the world. Is there anyone that you would like to thank today? Anybody from friends to family to agents, editors, and publishers?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I have a wonderful beta reader, Patty Moran, who has every book that I've written of late. At least she's read and made it better. She's got a very near editor level analytical mind when it comes to stories, and she points out like where the commas are actually supposed to be, and how where to use hyphens and like. So she's been a huge help. My editor for my first book, A Man in Pieces, was Sam Thorne. She was a wonderful editor. She really helped me to put the book into sellable hands, get it into and make it live and breathe itself. I would love to thank my wife and my daughter as well, because my wife is not a horror fan at all. My daughter is not either. That was a huge disappointment, but it's but it's no. My daughter has been an inspiration for some of the children's books that I've written. My wife has been an inspiration for some of the characters in my first book. The relationship in between my current book, Somewhere Quiet, Full of Light, between like Mike and Eric, and she's been very supportive of me. I think someone had said that support isn't always like rah rah sis boom bah. It's usually like the quiet person being like taking care of the laundry, giving you time to be able to sit with a podcast, or to like just have like a chance to be able to write, and catch up on what you need to do. So my wife has been a huge influence and a huge help for me. My daughter Sam, Patty, my mom, is another beta reader as well, and she's probably my biggest cheerleader herself. And the writing group, the Erotica Readers and Writers Group Association. They saw A Man of Pieces in its very early form and helped me make it better. And yeah, there's a lot of people and a lot of wonderful people that I've met and that have been really big help for me. And I got to say to Jennifer Reese as well. She was for my children's books that I hope will someday see the light of day. Yeah, exactly. That she was a huge help with those as well. So, yeah.
That's great. And thank you again for joining us today.
Yes. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
That's a wrap on this episode of Booked All Night. We'd love for you to be a part of the conversation, so don't forget to rate the show, drop a comment, and share your thoughts in the episode poll. And remember, subscribing means you'll never miss an episode or interview as we launch into more amazing stories together. Booked All Night is produced by Rob Cook and his cats. So when you share your favorite episode, be sure to tag us at Booked All Night Pod on Threads, Instagram, and Facebook, and say hi to our guy in the sound booth. For more information, like reading schedules and dates on our upcoming interviews, check out the link in the show notes. That's link.bio/bookedallnight. lnk.bio/bookedallnight for those of you who don't check the show notes. Until next time, my little Libernauts, this is Jessica Mary, Kay Leigh, Magdalyn Ann, and producer Rob signing off and reminding you to stay booked all night.